So today we're going to look at making PowerPoints in Office 365 accessible for screen readers. Most of what we talk about today will probably be applicable in Office non-365, I guess. That's versions like 2016 and 2019. I'm not sure 100% on that, but most of it should apply. And it's just good practice anyway, regardless of whether you have someone with low vision or visual impairment within your class, because it just makes the document more accessible in general. So to check the accessibility of a document, you can just go into the review tab. I like my shortcut keys, so I'm going to go Alt and R, which will bring me to the review tab, and then A1 for accessibility checker. So in here on the right hand side under accessibility, you have a new kind of dialog, a new box here that tells you your inspection results based on the accessibility of your PowerPoint presentation. So it breaks down under here: errors, warnings, tips, and intelligent services. And at the bottom you see additional information on why you need to fix it and steps on how to fix it, which is really helpful. So we're going to start first with errors. Okay, so errors are kind of more serious because they can make your slide inaccessible. Okay, so the first thing we're talking about here, if we go to picture 4, slide 22 for example, this is a picture of a hand-drawn mind map. Okay, up here on the drop down arrow we can click a right arrow here and it'll be like add a description or mark as decorative. Decorative means that the image has no meaning, so you can just click that, and like if it's the picture of a sunset or whatever, you don't need to really describe that sometimes, or it depends on the context of what you're presenting on. So we can add a description here, or we can right click on this document here and go edit all text. So what I'm going to say in here, I'm going to say handwritten mind map. Leave it at that. That describes what I'm looking at here. So now I'm clicking at handwritten mind map, and that's so now my errors, if you look up here, it went from 32 back down to 31. So that's kind of just easy, adding in alternative text which describes the image. The more information you can put into alt text, the better it is. So if there's a lot of detail within an image, you might want to give more description, especially if it's something like graphs, or if the image contains a lot of data. So you just need to think about that. So I'm just going to minimize this for a second. The second thing you're looking here is warnings. So warnings give you stuff that you can proceed with but may cause issues. So hard to read for here, content placeholder. So in here it's telling me color contrast, and as you can see from down here, this kind of grey on orange is quite difficult to read. So what you can do is here, if you click on the drop down area, it says change colors. So I can change it to all purple for example, which makes it a bit easier to see. But this one here, accent 1, for me seems like the best one, so I've changed it. That makes it a lot more accessible. So now as you can see, that image is taken away, so it is accessible and easier to read. Another thing you should look at, actually in terms of color contrast, if you want to just go around playing with colors anyway, WebAIM have a great website where you can actually put in different colors and contrast to see which are accessible and how accessible they are. In terms of checking order, this is important in slides because it's about how the screen reader reads through the slide. So if I click on this and I go in here and I click verify object order, it tells me the reading order of the document. That means that when a screen reader comes in here, it clicks on this first, then it goes to the second part, which is the text, which is we want to do. Third is this image, and fourth. So the reading order is actually correct, even though I haven't put alternative text yet behind this image here or this image here. So what you don't want is, you don't want it coming in here, then going down here, then into the text here, and then in here, because that's kind of quite confusing to read and it doesn't follow with the flow of the document. Screen readers work back off information on the screen, so the students using screen readers get auditory feedback. Every key they touch, anything that they move through, it reads it back directly to them. That's how they get their feedback. They don't have that visual aspect, so they can't see some of what's on your screen. So you need to give as much information as you can back to the student. In terms of tips, tips here are just about duplication of slide title in this instance. So that means that I've called 2 slides note taking writing. So it is important in terms of naming confirmation that you name each of your individual slides correctly. I used the same one here twice because, to be honest, I couldn't fit it all on one slide. So the idea was that I'd duplicate it, or not duplicate it, the idea was that it's just an extension of the previous slide. But in truth, you probably should name them kind of differently. So I should have called this one maybe note taking apps only, and then call this one hardware for note taking and writing, or some combination, and that kind of idea. Again, it's just a tip. It's not saying that you have to do it, but it's just trying to be helpful and give you feedback. Intelligent services is similar. In this instance, it's asking me, it thinks that there's an issue, I think, with the image description here. So if I right click in here and go into edit alt text, it's telling me that a screenshot of a cell phone. That is not a screenshot of a cell phone. This is me with an image created for the accessibility features of an iPad. So as you can see, it doesn't match. So in here I should technically go in here and rename this and say this is an image of the accessibility settings within an iPad, and maybe if I feel like it covers some of the things that are on display, like voiceover, zoom, magnification, stuff like that. The other thing is, when you're inserting tables inside in a PowerPoint, make sure that you have a table. Your table has a header row. If you're editing hyperlinks, for example, so here is a long web. If you're using a screen reader, it reads this by individual characters, so it's going to read HTTPS. What you need to do is you need to rename these so that the links make more sense. So if you right click on them, you go edit link, you'll get this thing here up here. This is the address bar to where you're going to take the link, and here's what you want the text to display. So this is Cast's website, so I'm going to say Cast. Actually, it should probably be Cast website, and in here as well you can add a screen tip. So that's just about link to Cast website. So that's like hover over, so that's screen. When you hover over the link, it'll tell you that. So click OK, click OK. Now this reads a lot easier. So when the screen reader gets the information back, it'll read back Cast website. It'll know it's a link based on the software, and it will take them directly to that website. Also, if you hover over there, you see it says link to Cast website. So it tells the person using the screen reader what this link will do. And you can do the same here. So this one below, for example, is for UDL guidelines. I go up here, I go edit link. I can just say UDL guidelines, screen tip, link to Cast UDL guidelines, and click OK. Click OK. And now that reads a lot easier. So when the screen reader comes through it, they'll know if they want to click on the links. This is a link to the Cast website. This one's a link to UDL Cast guidelines. So what else? If you want to create accessible PowerPoints in general, if you go in here and you go new, in here look for, you can type in accessible templates. If I could spell accessible templates. So if you hit enter in here, what it'll do is it'll bring you up a load of templates that are already have kind of inbuilt accessibility into them. So they're a good place to start from, because chances are the structure and the way they're designed is that they're more accessible and easier to use, so that they're automatically more compatible with screen readers. If you're talking about making your font accessible, you should be looking at something like minimum size 24, and you need to be looking at fonts like Arial, Vertana, Tahoma. They're the kind of ones you want to look at. You also want to think about your naming convention. So for example, if you're saving a PowerPoint as a thing, you should be calling it like week 1, lecture 1, and then the topic that you're covering in the PowerPoint. Make it as easy, because the screen readers, when they're going through their files, they're only going to be reading the heading. So if you don't make your heading more descriptive, you're going to make it more confusing for the students. And to be honest with you, it's just good naming practice as well. It just makes it easier for everyone. If you put all the accessible features in place, if you put the headings, the styles, the links, all of this stuff, and you save this as a PDF, they will all transfer across. So if you are one of those lecturers who hands out your material in PDF from slides, if you do it properly, it should carry all that information across with you, and you should be able to allow the student using the screen reader to access the material. As I said, just because you don't have someone maybe currently who has a screen reader in your classroom or in your class, that doesn't mean you shouldn't make your thing more accessible. It'll just benefit everybody in the long term. And here, hopefully from this video, you will see some points and tips about how you can change your practice to make your PowerPoints more accessible. Thanks.